As Houston looks to redeem themselves and get back to the national title game, they have the tallest task imaginable in the Illinois Illini in the Sweet 16. They play at home, they've got a path to victory, and it is within reach for Kellen Sampson and company.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs. It is Parker Ainsworth, your host here of Locked On Cougs, breaking all things Houston Cougars down. This is a gigantic Sweet 16 matchup. We've been talking about it all week long. That really honestly has some big conference implications and comparing conferences and kind of who's at the top of college basketball. That will be our third segment. Key matchups in this one, including a couple of lottery top 10 caliber guards. That will be our second segment. But first, we got to talk about how Houston's going to win this game and what kinds of things they have to do to win this game. I should point out the game is being played at the Toyota Center. Thank you to Rice for taking over hosting duties and allowing that to happen, because Houston gets to play in their backyard. A 2-mile bus ride helps a whole lot. And frankly, while the crowd may have a lot of Big Ten folks there, I'd imagine after Mattress Mac's generous donation, a lot of folks will be there wearing Houston Cougar red as well. Now, Illinois is really good at a handful of things, and frankly, there's a reason that they have a top offense in college basketball and one of the best reboundings, and they're most disciplined on this and that. This is a good team, but to win a title, you have to beat good teams, and so Houston's going to have to do and manipulate a few things in this game, just like they did against Purdue last year or Duke last year or whatever, to come out with victory and get back to the national title game, and hopefully this year come out with a little bit different result in the final minutes. And the first thing is they're going to have to find a way to beat drop coverage. For whatever it's worth, Illinois is big and tall and long, legitimately the tallest team in college basketball. I think I've said that 25 times this week. They play what's called a drop coverage, meaning when my guy is setting a screen, I back up to prevent a drive off of his shoulder, dropped away from the play. And with their big guy, they drop all the way back to the rim to protect the rim more often than not. Now, the theory there is actually very analytical. Layups and dunks are much easier shots than mid-ranges, so you got to hurt them there. Houston, the easiest way to do this would be to get hot in the mid-range. Houston does thrive in the mid-range. They run sets to the mid-ranges. They run some of their screening actions where Kingston Flemings is coming off of a ball screen, and the conflict he's putting on the defense is not actually the player at the rim, and is he going to raise or lower, but the player on the wing. Is he going to come in or out? And he'll pull up at the nail if the guy stays out. It's not uncommon for Houston to run circle plays, get Senack up to the mid-range and stuff like that. If Houston's hot in the mid-range, they'll beat the drop. The more challenging, but they will be helpless if you do it way to beat the drop, is if you start to score the basketball inside of 8 feet. Houston, pretty notoriously, does not shoot a whole lot of layups, relatively speaking, in the course of a game. Certainly not for teams as talented or with as high aspirations as they are. They have the 364th out of 365 worst average 2-point field goal distance, meaning they're shooting their twos from the second most farthest away at 8 feet, and then get inside of 8 feet, either get layups, floaters, drop-offs for dunks, and those kind of things to hurt the drop coverage and start putting the big man in conflict. I think they've got a real chance here. Now, Mo Krivas, JT Toppin, those kind of bigs did deter that and force mid-range. We saw Flemings have a really big day in the mid-range against JT Toppin. We frankly saw Houston they took a lead at 2 different points against Arizona, hitting mid-range jump shots and forcing that kind of a game. You saw them play better against Bedunga in Kansas in the second time they played them as well. I think they're better now at that than they were in December and January. But on the whole, if you get hot in the mid-range, it might not matter, and you're trying to find a way to put pressure on them and exploit that coverage for what it's worth. It's not an uncommon one, but it's also one that you're going to have to beat intentionally. I would love to see Houston get to the rim a little bit more on this one than they typically do, but again, Illinois is at this point too for a reason. They're really good at defending that without fouling. They won't send Houston to the free throw line a whole lot. It'll be dunks, layups, or contested misses. I don't see them fouling Houston a whole lot in there. Houston needs to win the turnover battle. Now, this is something we talk about a lot. Houston consistently wins the turnover battle a lot. That's also why Houston wins a lot of basketball games. But Illinois is really good at taking care of the basketball. This is in part because they're really, really big. We talked about that a few times, and they see over defenses a lot. Keaton Wagler is listed 6'6", long arms. He sees over for a lot of skip passes. Same with the Stojakovic kid when he comes in and stuff like that. The easiest way is to force bad passes if you're Houston in traps and things like that. Force pick six kind of plays, force the ball get thrown out of bounds. We've seen Houston do that to even good teams, even Arizona's the world at times in all of those matchups. It would not be unlike them to force that in this one. If you do that consistently and really put the ball pressure on Illinois and make them do it a lot, that's an easy way to win. They'll be helpless though if you're able to force those same kind of errant passes in more one-on-one situations, right? Part of what Illinois does so well is because they're so tall, they throw those skips. If you're in one-on-one situations, those skips are less likely there. If you're playing high hands and up on the ball in those situations, those skips are less likely to be there as well. And so you're hoping to like force them to throw contested catches, and then you can go play the ball in the air for the catch. Can think about like a DB, right? If you can just play man coverage, you're fine, right? If you are good enough to play guys in man and just rush the passer with four, you're golden. You're kind of hoping the same kind of thing with blitzing the ball screen with just the intense ball pressure of one guy. Obviously, if they screen things like that, it will change things, but hopefully, kind of play that chess game from there. I really, really, really think that Illinois is not used to having to throw the ball, quote, blindly because they have such great court vision, and credit to them, they are good at that. If you can force them to throw more of those guessing games, I think you're going to be here. I think my guy can make that catch kind of passes because of the ball pressure you're applying in one-man situations for sure, but in two-man even as well. You give yourself a chance to get in on the ball and get some turnovers. Now, they don't turn the ball over a whole lot. They're top 10. Yeah, top. I can't tell that's five. No, that's top. That's a six. So top 10 in one category, top 10 in the other as well in terms of not turning the ball over. And so you're going to have to kind of force the issue here. I will say that part of that is, again, they're gigantic guards, and Houston's ball pressure is different than other people's. Houston's ball pressure, for what it's worth, and forcing turnovers is also top five, actually, and forcing steals and turnovers in general is top 10. They're really good at that as well. So kind of who wins the tug of war in that will be a big factor here. Both teams probably have this part. They probably both have all this in their scouting report, but which team is doing the better job of tracking guys when they see the ball in man will be a big deal in this game. Both teams do two things very well that indicate this. One is they relocate as the ball is driven, right? Both teams have good shooters. Both teams relocate really well. If Houston's doing a better job of tracking from the help side, either on a X out or a cross out, close out on the backside or whatever, they'll be okay. Same thing, I guess, would obviously be if you can take advantage of that the other way, where you can have like Emanuel Sharp coming open or Chase McCarty open in the corner or whatever because you put them in conflict there, right? So you're trying to win those relocations where they're so obsessed with keeping Kingston out of the lane driving the ball that they leave someone open on the outside, or same with Milos or whatever, right? That's what you're trying to do. They're going to do the same thing to you as well for what it's worth, and you're going to kind of win those matchups or be the better team at that. Both teams are also really good at what Houston's coaching staff calls dagger threes, or where you get offensive rebound and relocate, kick out for a three right away. Now, a dagger three is actually a really easy shot because the defense is scrambled, having just tried to rebound the basketball. You've offensive rebounded the basketball. You've practiced this if you're a good team like Houston and Illinois are, and their guys are attacking. The offense is finding spots on the 3-point line, and guys have their spots. If I'm Houston, I know when Tugler gets the ball on our right block, I'm going here or here. He knows to glance there, or that he knows where to look and where to find me. It is instant. It is quick. You're trying to get a three up from one of those couple spots, wherever the ball is rebounded, as quickly as possible, right? Both of these teams are really good at that because both of these teams are really good at rebounding. And the key will be if you're tracking the offensive players and not losing them on those box outs, and not just like losing them in an effort to go find the ball, but actually finding the body and understanding where everyone is. The team that keeps better track of guys in those situations and gives up less dagger shots or less dagger threes, assuming both teams make their averages on the season, if one team just misses a bunch, it kind of negates this. But that will be a key figure here. Now, for what it's worth, that Illinois passing we talked about, they'll hit a dagger three spot and skip it to another one. So you got to continue to look for the relocation. Right, they're one of the best offenses in America. They get up a lot of threes. So you got to make sure you're constantly finding the extra bodies, and hopefully for bottling guys up defensively without having to send a second or having to send that help side fully, all the way committed or whatever. It makes it a little bit easier on yourself. Now, a lot of those things come down to winning one-on-one matchups. And look, both teams have guys will be picked in the top 10 of the NBA draft at guard. They won't guard each other, but the matchups there will be really, really important. I want to talk about that in just 1 second. But first, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Indeed, because workplace chaos like the North Carolina job coming open very suddenly, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing. You got one position to fill, and it's just sitting open when the pressure's on and you need to find the right hire. It's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit your profile, what you're looking for, skills, experience, location. You're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. They help you find them. Now, the status of all is in the minute we've been talking, companies like yours have found 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if hiring, you can spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of the show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Yeah, get it. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now to show support and say you found them on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. It's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Today's show is also brought to you by Robinhood, because what if sports are traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moment that matter. Robinhood prediction markets to change the game. It's people moving the action. So when the momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download Robinhood app now to begin. Futures, cleared swaps involved trading involves significant risk, and it's not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission, merchant, and swap firm. Parker Ranch here, remind you guys to join the Everyday Club. You just need a little bit more Locked On Cougs. It's March. You're all getting a lot of Locked On Cougs every day, including post-game live. We'll be live after this game. It's late tip. I'll be live whenever it wraps up. Win, lose, tie, draw. But if you want more on a daily basis, lockedonpodcast.com, just every day to teach you a little bit about the Everyday Club. Or if you want to get on the action right away, you heard enough, lockedoncougs.supercast.com. Link is also in the show notes. Now, matchups here. Both of these teams have top 10 pick point guards, or projecting to be NBA point guards. Wagler kind of plays both guards there, some at Illinois. But Kingston Flemings will not guard Wagler, and I don't imagine Keaton Wagler covers Kingston Flemings either. I'd imagine that what they do with Flemings, as far as the matchup goes, both ways, frankly, is that Flemings and Kylan Boswell will guard one another. Boswell is a stockier senior. He's 6'2". Frankly, he feels like he'd have been a great Houston Cougar, kind of doggy kind of guy as a point guard / off guard, because he doesn't need the ball in his hands a whole lot. 6'2", $195. You told me he's 200, I believe you. He's really, really athletic and really, really strong. And I don't want to say he can't score. He's getting 13 points per game, and he does some things attacking the rim that are pretty strong. But his job in this game is going to be physical and be relentless. And as their quickest athlete, I don't know if I'd call him best, but definitely their quickest athlete, they're going to have him trying to keep Flemings out of the paint. And in the situations that Houston creates to kind of isolate Flemings on empty sides or give him open lanes to drive in, they're going to try and use Boswell's strength to keep that from happening. Conversely, Flemings will probably cover Boswell because of the backcourt guys. It's the least troublesome one because Flemings gets lost sometimes. Flemings is still a freshman. I think it's easy to forget that sometimes because he is so dynamic. Boswell on a team that shoots very well is the lesser of the shooting threats from the outside to me. He does shoot 4 threes a game, shoots about 30%, and with my luck, he'll get hot on Thursday night. But I think that he's certainly not Wagler. You don't want Kingston Flemings getting lost trying to cover Keaton out there in space. And I also think that he'll have the ball in his hands enough trying to set up other guys that his points kind of come off of those kinds of plays where he's got the ball in his hands a lot to start. And so I don't think Kingston will lose him that way. Kingston doesn't play poor defense, but he is a freshman, and this is a Sweet 16 game. I think that's the matchup both ways on this one. As far as covering Keaton Wagler goes, I think Milos Uzan will be covering him. Uzan is 6'4" and long. Um, Wagler's listed at 6'6", and he's a pretty I believe he's every inch. They might be 6'6" and change. Really big combo guard at the NBA level. They're projecting him as a point guard, but with Illinois, he kind of does both jobs. He leads them in points. He had 46 against Purdue this year. That dude's gonna score. The deal for Milos is going to be, to me, is to force him to do it with tough shots. And if he does it great, right? But Wagner's not a great athlete. He is one of the 10 to 15 best players in America. I believe he's a semifinalist or it might be a final. I don't know what their level they're at now. Whatever the furthest level is right now for Naismith Player of the Year. He's really good. He's also not a great athlete. That's how good he is at basketball. I should stress that that's like more of a positive, that as someone who's not a great athlete, he is still a really good basketball player. And I think Uzan's going to need to use his quickness, his length to kind of stay in front of him some. And I put Milos on him because, frankly, Milos has taken the tough guard job a couple times this year with good success. I think Manuel's usually been a little bit better defender, but I think the last dozen games or so, they've been starting a guy named Jake Davis at the other guard. Jake Davis is a bigger body. He's 6'6", 210. If you told me he was like 215, I believe you do. And Emmanuel's a stronger body, and I think that's going to be kind of where you want Emanuel Sharp at. Now, Jake Davis is not the scorer that, frankly, either of those guys are. So if you told me if you put Milos on him and flip Milos and Emmanuel because of that, I totally get it. But Jake Davis is the one they sub out for Andrei Stojakovic, who can get hot swing the basketball and does it by attacking downhill. I think you want Emmanuel's size and strength on him when he comes in for some of the same kind of situations, right? And so I think that's the matchup with Uzan being a more consistent guy on Wagler. Truthfully, though, with Wagler, you're never guarding him with just one guy. It's your coverage, it's your system, etc. And so it's not that Uzan is going to be on an island a whole lot, but the more one-on-one matchups and possessions you can win, the better. I think Sharp gets the other guard. I think Chris Senack covers David Merkovich. Merkovich is here as a power forward. He has started not every game for them this year, but he's listed about 6'10", 250 pounds, which is not horribly different in size. Senack's a little bit taller, but they're both pretty strong guys. And look, I don't mean to say this like bluntly or in a way that would put blame on or whatever. Senack has to win this matchup, and they're both freshmen. And frankly, the Merkovich guy is the kind of guy that early in the season, I think Senack would have struggled with, right? We saw him struggle part of the year with JT Toppin. We saw him struggle early in the year with other bigs. I think February and March, Senack's going to win this matchup, but Houston needs him to win this matchup. Merkovich is their second leading scorer, technically. He also gets 8 rebounds a game. But he's not like known as an electric three-point shooter because they've got Wagler there next to him, but he is shooting 38% on over 4 threes a game. So I think Senack, again, is very well equipped to get out there and cover him in space, get out and bang with him on the inside and do all those kinds of things. But they have to have him win this matchup because so many of these, again, this is another Sweet 16 team. And it could be, I mean, frankly, if you told me this matchup happened in this Elite Eight or Final Four, I wouldn't have doubted it. They have that kind of an offense. So Senack has to win that matchup to me. And then JoJo Tugler is going to cover, obviously, the Ivisic brother. I think that I've heard him referenced as Tommy and Z. And so I'm going to say Tommy and Z because those are much easier to say. And I've been trying to get the names right. And that's Ivisic is hard enough for me. But JoJo, I think, versus Tommy Ivisic is going to be the starting center for them. And that's a match. He's been starting center most of the year for them. His brother comes in, it's a little bit more athletic. The starter's a little bit headier, smarter. And Tommy Ivisic, I think, is going to be used a lot as a offensive rebounds, putbacks, dunks, and then helping set other guys up with screens and backside actions and stuff like that. We talked in the first preview on Wednesday about how like they'll do skips or they'll run backside hammers and use his big size to kind of keep teams from getting out there. JoJo needs to use his athleticism and wingspan, high hands, and stuff like that to kind of negate that whenever possible. And look, if Tugler and Sacco out rebound the Ivisic brothers, their Houston's chances are really high. That guy's good. He's big. He's strong. Joe's gonna have to do work early to keep him off the glass and do work disciplined in a way that keeps himself from foul trouble to keep him off the glass because Tommy Ivisic is not going to get in foul trouble. He's just not. And so you're going to kind of have to be smart with how you use JoJo there. Now, JoJo's going to probably be used in ball screen actions and then have to use that athleticism and the athletic advantages he's got to recover and still get to box outs without fouling. That's a tall task, but he's done better at it in the last 6 or 8 weeks. Kind of those deals where it feels like JoJo's playing his best ball as of late, and that's important in this matchup. As far as the bench goes, both teams run about 8. I wouldn't call either team crazy deep. 8's about normal at this point in the year for a good team. Houston will run out Chase McCarty, Mercy Miller, and Clefa Sacco. I don't think they're going a whole lot deeper than that. They're running Illinois, that is Ben Hummerkaus, Andrei Stojakovic, we mentioned, and the other Ivisic brother. Um, I think in Houston to win the bench matchup, so to speak, they need one of those guys out of Chase and Mercy to score some points. It'd be great if one of them get 10 straight or to get 10 points. It'd be the fourth straight game that Mercy did that. I think he's out of the realm of possibility, though, especially the way he shoots the ball. And I imagine with the concern being Kingston driving and stuff like that, he'll be open. Could also see them over helping on Emanuel and the extra pass ending up in Chase McCarty's hands for a couple threes in the corner or a couple threes above the break in the slot, those kinds of things. And I said to say that truthfully, I guess if they combined for 12 or 14 or 12 or 14 points, I should say, that's not different than like if one has 10 and one has 4 out of the couple there. But those guys, I think, need to get you some points. And then I think Sacco versus the other Ivisic or whichever Ivisic he's in there guarding, I think needs to kind of help control the glass, right? JoJo, I think, can win you the glass, but you can't lose it when Sacco's in. Sacco is bigger, and he may actually be more versatile in this way because he's bigger. I also wonder, and this will be my last lineup thing, if there's any advantage if you're having so much trouble rebounding against this team because they are so big, and putting Senack at the 5, putting Chase at the 4, and running small and really playing perimeter game and seeing who can get hot shooting the ball and space them out because I think you can beat a lot of these guys off the bounce in space. And we'll see what Houston experiments with. They've done that a little bit this year, not a lot, but they had a lot of time to prepare for this one. So we'll see how that goes. I don't anticipate them going to that a lot. It kind of seems like to me it's like a one of those cards you pull out of your Uno hand just to see if it plays or not. I think that we'll see. If we're getting to that and it doesn't work, we're probably in trouble. Now, we could get to that just because it's a tight game. Hey, let's do 2 minutes and see what happens, and it works, and we're in great shape, right? But if we're down 5 and we go to that and we bleed some more points, we might be in trouble. So we'll see where that lineup goes. On the whole, though, there I think this is the matchups are what make this fun. One of the other things that make this fun, though, is that both conferences kind of have their eyes set on this game. The Big Ten, the Big 12 have eyes on a big March. This game is a big part of that. Before we get to that, though, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the way to do taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation. This year, getting a major upgrade into it. TurboTax's in-person locations nationwide. You meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. Just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get every dollar you deserve, and we get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's a relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. The big stretch of college basketball season is here. Buzzer beaters, bracket busters, unforgettable moments. Everyone's talking about it. This game is in Houston. These games are in Houston if they were to win. And being there for the live for something like that is just bucket list kind of stuff. The hard part is actually getting tickets. That's been a long conversation for Houston fans this week. Long queues, jumping prices, surprise fees at checkouts. The Game Time app gives fans advantage with constant innovation and it's taking away a lot of that, right? Seat view feature means you know exactly where you're going to be sitting. Zone deals mean if you pick certain sections, you get better deals. I love that you can toggle it to where you see the exact price. There are no surprise fees. You know what you're going to pay at checkout. Boom. I also love that you can just select that you want to follow the Houston Cougars, and then as games conclude and more games get added, you get pinged telling you that they're coming up, and then you can get tickets in the action right away. Take the guys who got to buy in college basketball tickets with Game Time to download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, that's code Locked On, LOCKEDON, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Park Rangers Locked On Cougs here. And look, I don't mean to say that either one of these teams, Illinois or Houston, are the bell cow for their conference. Houston finished second in the regular season and conference tournament this year. It's actually the first year they finished second in both, for what it's worth, but they've been in the conference championship game 3 years in a row, and they got second in that this year. They won it last year. They won the regular season the previous 2 seasons, but got second in that this year, right? And so it is Arizona's turn this year, and we'll take it back next year. That's an offseason conversation. Illinois is not the marquee team in the Big Ten this year. It's Michigan. It's been Michigan, and while Michigan did get scared by TCU to start the season or whatever, right? It certainly is a team that has kind of carried that conference. I weirdly think that means this matchup means more to both leagues, though, because there's a lot to be said about, hey, we just had the best team in college basketball the year, right? If Arizona or Michigan were to win it, kudos to them. You had the best. That's great. But if you also have the second and the third or 2 of the final 4 or something like that, it speaks to a different level of depth of your conference. And look, the Big 12 has every reason to boast about its basketball prowess. It has Arizona this year, but also has a Kansas team that just won it all in 2022. Baylor won it all in 2021. There was no tournament in 2020, but had several Big 12 teams at the top of the country. But in 2019, you had Texas Tech in the finals. Just last season, you had Houston in the finals. Houston was also in a Final Four before they joined the conference. But as far as like conference prestige goes, it's 2 Final Fours in a couple years there as well. No tournament in 2020, but you had Kansas in a Final Four in 2018 because Tech's there in 19. Big 12 has had a really good run of basketball here as of late. And frankly, it got better when they kicked out Texas and Oklahoma and brought in Houston, Arizona. That's a conversation for a different show, right? The Big Ten has a depth and a breadth of good teams, but has not won a title given the current landscape of things. I mean, the current teams, they had Maryland in 2002. Back then, Maryland was an ACC team. The last team to win a national title with Big Ten on their jersey was Michigan State in 2000, right? And so there are 18 Big Ten teams, 16 Big 12 teams, notably not 10 or 12, but not here nor there. And look, both Houston and Illinois have been in the top 10 to 15, if not better, all season long. The Big Ten had more teams make the tournament, right? The Big 12 has 3 teams that have on FanDuel pretty good odds to win the whole thing as well. So I think that speaks to kind of what we're talking about here, talent versus depth, etc. The Big Ten has had plenty of seasons in this post 2000 window. They've certainly had 2 of the 4 Final Four teams, like a team representing the East and a team representing the North, or in this case, it'd be the South with Illinois or whatever. But it doesn't mean that they always get a champion. They haven't, obviously, right? And frankly, what it's worth, if Illinois were to beat Houston, with the other side of this portion of the bracket being Iowa and Nebraska, the Big Ten does then just by default get a Final Four team, right? Regardless of what Michigan does. And look, I saw like a year ago in the SEC, they had that one great year. They think they're best things in sliced bread, right? I get that, right? Or whatever. They also had a handful of comebacks along the way there that, a minute here, a minute there go different, a shot here, a shot there go different, and something they're not, right? But anyway, Illinois is going to be looking to be that representative, though, that second team out of the Big Ten. And Houston is kind of looking to do the same because they can't control what Arizona is doing on that side. Frankly, round 3 of the Arizona, as they've each gotten a little bit better, might go Houston's way in the final, right? That we'll talk about that if that happens, when it happens, right? But Illinois has had high hopes throughout the season. And then in the last 5 games against top 30 teams, they're 0-5. Further, since February 1st, against top 50 teams, they're just 2-5. And some of those wins in that same window in the last 2 months of basketball are against teams outside of the top 100. And look, they beat Iowa, they beat Purdue, they beat Nebraska, all of whom were top 25 in KenPom. Illinois did, that is. And in that, Wagler went bananas against 2 of those teams. He had 20 against Nebraska, 46 against Purdue. Against Iowa, he and I think it was Stojakovic and Boswell each broke 17 or had 17 plus, right? Like they've had these like big performances in those games to kind of get them over the hump. But I also think there's something to be said about how they've had struggles against top tier teams lately, and if Houston were to win this one in the Elite Eight, it'd be the same story for the Big Ten. They don't want that to happen. If Houston were to struggle, the Big 12 would take a knock too, because it's been going on 4 or 5 years since a Big 12 champion, right? And that could be a problem for the conference as well. And look, we've seen the Big 12 get talked about worse for less. If the Big 12 uh, you know, wins in 2022, 23-4, both UConn, 25 is Florida, with another SEC team in the Final Four. And suddenly it's like, oh, okay, that's no longer the Big 12 sport. Like never minding that they've had top tier teams that just didn't win at all in each of those seasons, or Houston and Jamal Shed injury or whatever, right? There's probably honestly something to be said about if Houston or Arizona become the next Big 12 team to win a title this season. There'll be something to be said. Well, the conference wasn't that good because those two teams are really new. They're not really Big 12. Something will be said, right? But this game is going to get used to talk about comparing conferences because it's two teams that are not just having outstanding years. They're trying to they're kind of representatives of the rest of those leagues, and how that carries over into off-season conversations, frankly, preseason rankings and things like that in the next season, those more qualitative side of things that you're ranking teams next year, how recruits look at things, right? The college coaching landscape is dramatically changing. Houston's looking at guys that are looking at Big Ten schools and vice versa. And I think this is all to say that, if you can preach being the better league and having some pieces of evidence to point to, this game is going to be one of those pieces of evidence. Right now, I think if both teams play their best game, Houston wins. I mentioned that Illinois has had struggles with top 50 teams. No, those struggles against top 50 teams, being 2-5 against top 50 in the last 7 contests against top 50 teams, those are like overtime close contests. I'm going to say this is going to be a runaway. This is not that kind of game to me. But I do think Houston wins by, let's say, 5-ish. They're up 3 or 4 and get free throws at the end to kind of push to 5. Like that's kind of where I see this kind of thing going. I think ultimately come down to a couple of times where Houston makes that maybe not full kill shot of a 10-0 run, but a 6-0 run here, and then they play even, or maybe give up a basket extra, and then a 4-0 run there. I think those kinds of things will shift back and forth. This will be a game of runs, and it'll be a game of chess match amongst the coaches. That's also where I fall to Houston winning a close one, because I think in a chess match of coaches in this one, I'm taking Sampson and company versus whatever you got up there in the Illini. Now, I will say that's if both teams play their A game. We've seen Houston lay eggs offensively shooting the ball. If they can't shoot the ball, this team's not going to give up a bunch of layups. You got problems, right? So it's not anywhere near a foregone conclusion. I just think that if both teams are playing at the same grade of themselves, Houston's got a really good chance here. And we're breaking it down live after the fact, whatever the case may be. So hit subscribe. Hit the bell so you know when we're going live for the post game. Locked On Coogs is a prime member, the Locked On Podcast Network, and that means your team every day. Go Coogs.